My family came to Port Fairy, and my great-grandfather actually was a stonemason that built this bank originally in about the 1840s. And he was a stonemason in Port Fairy. He did a lot of the building, stonework, bluestone work around Port Fairy, and his whole family lived here. My dad's family lived in Waterville.
His building, and did you come by here and regard the building? Tell me what it was like to pass this building back in the day.
I knew when I was a child going to school, because Mum used to bring us down the street and we'd go shopping, and she used to say, Grandpa built that building and Grandpa did this and Grandpa did that, and there was a whole series of places around Port Fairy. But when you're only 4 or 5 or 6 years old, they haven't got much significance, and I don't think you realise that until you get older, and you realise what a great contribution to Port Fairy that it was. This plaque commemorates the opening on the 5th of July 1853 of the Port Fairy branch of the Bank of Australasia. He was probably trained in England to be a stonemason when he came out here, and he probably worked in a gang of maybe 6 or 8 people, where they were all stonemasons, because you needed the men to be able to move the rocks around, the heavy lifting and so forth. And this is only one of the projects that he would have done in Port Fairy.
And what was his day like? Do you have any clue at all? Like, he got up in the morning at 4 a.m. and so see if you can stretch that out and tell me about his day.
I imagine his day would have started, because when they first came out here, they had some property, like a small farm, where he would have had to get up and milk the cows, do the farm work, go off to do his day's work, and then at the end of the day he would come back home again, milk the cows again, do the chores around the house, and that would be his day. Would probably consist of maybe 16 hours a day when he first came out here. Every time I come to Port Fairy, I seem to have some sort of connection with the place, and I think that's because of these buildings and the family connection that goes back 150 years, 160 years, that it becomes part of you, and you seem to look forward every time you think, I'm coming to Port Fairy. It just feels like you're going home all the time. Yeah, they're good fun for kids.
Probably everyone says that about their children.
Yeah.
Yeah, down Moonlight Bay.
All right, so is he still fishing, Howard, is he?
He is, yeah. So. Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, there you go.
I look at her and think, oh my goodness, no way. You've been taking your time, actually. I go to look at the watch, it's not there.
We had lunch in Port Campbell. This is a Perry family home, my great-grandfather, and he built this in the 1850s, thereabouts, and we're just calling in to have a bit of a look and see what condition it's in, and maybe if people have made any improvements since he left. No, I never lived here. No, my mum used to bring me, I lived around the corner about 300 metres away from here, and Mum used to come around here and bring us around and tell us some of the history of it when we lived in Port Fairy. This little house over here, there are 2 guys lived in there all of their lives. Their parents lived there, they grew up there, and they've got about 1.5 acres of land, and they used to have their own cows and a couple of sheep, and they've lived there for 90 odd years. And about 10 years ago the developers came along and offered to buy the land and the house for $6 million Australian dollars, which is a huge amount of money. And the 2 guys who lived there, the 2 brothers, they would have been in their 90s. They said, we've lived here all of our life, we're not going to move now no matter how much you pay us. And they stayed there until they died. And since then the property's been sold and it's been renovated, and as you can see now it's just magnificent. Beautiful property.
Where are we headed for?
We're going over to the Surf Lifesaving Club for breakfast.
And I heard that had a special significance for you out there.
The surf club?
Yeah.
It's a great spot. That's not where I learned to swim, that's in Pea Soup, but the surf club has been run by volunteers for as long as I can remember, and there's actually a shipwreck out on the front of the surf club in the water. I'm not quite sure whether we'll be able to see it today or not, but we'll have a look when we get there. All these Norfolk pines planted in Port Fairy were planted because of the number of sailing ships that used to go past. If they broke a mast on their ship, they could actually cut down one of these trees and make themselves a new mast. Because the trunk in these trees is almost straight, so they just take the branches off, cut it down to the size they need, and they can make a new mast for these ships, sailing ships. When I was a small child going to school, we used to get these off the trees, off the Norfolk pines, and we used to make swords out of them. And we used to peel this bit off around the top there, that was our handle of our sword, like that, and we used to take this bit off here, and that was our sword when we were going to school. So we used to play pirates, and that was our sword, and this was the scabbard, so we were able to put this back inside the scabbard. So that was one of our toys when we went to school, one of our playthings.
Tell me where you used to dive.
We used to dive just down through here, and we would swim from this side across to the rocks on the other side. We'd shoot fish on the way across, put them on our float, and in the middle there it's probably about 30 to 40 feet deep.
So Brian, where are we? What's going on here? What's the significance of where we are?
We're at St Patrick's Church in Port Fairy, which is probably about 150 years old, and I brought you out here to have a look at this. My great-grandfather didn't build the church, but this fence that I'm leaning on, he actually built the fence that went right around the church. So it's all made out of bluestone, and as far as I can see, most of it's still intact after all these years.
Exactly.
This is the Port Fairy Consolidated School, which when I went there, it used to go from grade 6, from primary school in grade 1 up to year 10, which is Form 4 now. So when you got to year 10 and when you lived in Port Fairy, you went and got a job. I can remember when Dad brought home, Dad was working on the main surf beach and they were building the stone wall. And he was carting the rocks with his truck backwards and forwards from the quarry, and he caught a snake, a little brown snake, about 1 foot long, and he put it in a lemonade bottle, and I took it to school the next day. And I actually, on the way home, I actually let the snake go in the rocks.
Why?
Because I thought, well, you know, you shouldn't kill these things, so I let the snake go in the rocks, and it's only over here in the corner on the right hand side that that's where I last saw the snake. There's 3 children born in Port Fairy and 2 children born in Ballarat, and my mum and dad, so there were 5 of us lived there in that house.
And what's your best memory of that house?
I've got a lot of good memories, but I remember of an evening when the cricket was on, when Australia was playing England in the cricket, and we used to sit down in the lounge room and listen to the cricket on the radio. That was a real highlight. It's the same with the football, and I used to have cousins that used to come down from Melbourne, and they lived in Richmond, and of course they barracked for Richmond Football Club. So when they came down, I knew nothing about football, and then they got me to start barracking for Richmond as well, and I've continued to do so right up until now. Old Auntie Grace and young Auntie Grace.
2 Auntie Graces.
2 Auntie Graces.
This is Auntie Grace's house right here. That little white one. Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? Is this old Auntie or?
My old auntie, she would have been 100 last year. Auntie Grace was like a second mum to our family. She was Mum's oldest sister. She had a daughter, Lorraine, and Auntie Grace never married. And she used to be a dressmaker and work from this house. And she used to make clothes for a lot of the people in Port Fairy, for a lot of the dresses and upmarket clothes for people in Port Fairy.
So from your house on the corner, you used to pedal down here?
I used to pedal down in my little pedal car, and I used to sit at the War Memorial here and watch all the cars and trucks go past, until Mum used to come and get me and bring me back home again. Mr. Reardon, he was the man who built the local picture theatre, and he used to run the movies of a Friday and Saturday night at the movie theatre.
It's over here, right?
It's down here on my left hand.
Show it to me a little? Yeah.
Down here on my left hand side.
Yeah.
Down there with the big veranda sticking out the front. And he used to operate the movies, and if the kids were naughty inside, he would turn the movie off, and he would come out and threaten to send us all home if we didn't behave ourselves.
So did you behave?
We used to behave ourselves so we could sit and watch the movie. But sometimes when we went to the movies, we might take some lollies or some Jaffas and things like that, and we would roll them down the aisles in the movies.
Wow.
Because it was elevated steps all the way down, so the Jaffas would roll from one side or one end of the movie theatre to the other.
And so, is this your grandfather's wall over here?
Yeah, behind me now is my great-grandfather built that wall back in the 1850s, and it's the village green in Port Fairy. Yeah.
Let's go over there and see it.
Okay. Sounds like it's good. Let's go over and have a look.
Yeah.
Fiddler's reindeer.
Sort of the pièce de résistance of your grandfather?
I think it is. I think it's probably the best piece of work in Port Fairy that he did. It's called the Fiddler's Green, where they have the part of the Folk Festival is performed here every year. So where I'm sitting now, they set up one of the bands and they perform here live during the long weekend in March over 3 days. So it's a really good little amphitheatre area for the people of Port Fairy.
Built, and there was Irishmen involved that had no
No
likening.
paperwork. Yeah.
Well, they didn't like the bloody English for a start.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they thought, well, no, we need to build a bridge built, and we've got to build it. Now, this even goes back to my great-grandmother. If you go down and have a look at the flour mill down there,
Oh, yes, yep.
that's our ownership.
Oh, right.
We own that.
So what's
Yeah.
your
We
name?
own the Butterfell. Well, they were Haylocks.
Oh, Haylocks.
Oh, yeah,
Eric
Jim-
Haylock.
Eric Haylock.
Yeah.
Him and my dad were good mates.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, and this is the best thing about what good mates mean, it's community and what we need.
Yeah.
The Folk Festival, the Moyniana Festival, all of these things that make us important in here would never have developed had it not been for the community love for who we were.
There you were, that's right.
That's right. So, now, could you imagine the process that you'd have to go through now? But imagine the process that they forewent.
Yes.
They went, bugger the process. It has to be done.
It's got to be done. You've got to do
Now,
this
the
right.
bell tower of the
Yes.
English church there,
Yes.
the top 2 stories of the building of the flour mill was donated by my great-great-grandmother
Yes.
to finish that bell tower. Now, could you imagine going to the... And this remind you that this was a time when all of the natural, all of the resources...
What about it?
That little tile over in front of the drill hall, that's the first time I've ever seen it. I didn't know it was there. Didn't know it existed.
And what did you feel when you saw it?
I was amazed that here we were tracking the history of these two people, and all of a sudden we end up finishing up and standing on the plaque that was put down by somebody else in memory of those people. Yeah, that was amazing. Amazing. So they've left their mark in Port Fairy, I think.